the problem is not about calories, it's about hormones. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Obesity Project. My name is Dr. Mark Shankman. I'm an oral and maxillofacial surgeon that has an interest in fighting obesity, as well as talking about insulin, talking about um, things like type 2 diabetes and being pre-diabetic. And also, it's been part of my personal weight loss journey as well. So, thank you so much for joining me once again. And today, episode 17, the calorie myth, why eat less and move more simply doesn't work. So, I want to take a step back before we dive into, how to take care of weight loss and how to do it reliably and predictably. But we've got to go back to this idea of the calorie myth. And as you can see in the picture behind me, for many, many years, it was believed that a calorie is a calorie and that it didn't matter whether it came from carbs or whether it came from fat or vegetables or fruits or refined carbohydrates. So, like as you can see in this picture here, over there, whether it was pizza or hamburgers or French fries or onion rings, it really didn't matter versus apples and broccoli and asparagus. It didn't really make a difference. But we know without a shadow of a doubt that this is absolutely and entirely untrue. So, are you still counting calories to lose weight? Science says it's time to stop. So, ever wonder why dieting fails 95% of the time? The problem isn't your willpower, it's the calorie myth. And if eating less and moving more actually worked, obesity wouldn't be an epidemic. So here's what's really going on. So the myth about calories in, calories out. Um, the traditional model of weight loss says that if you eat fewer calories and you burn more, that you'll actually lose weight. And, it makes sort of common sense thinking. But here's the reality is the calories in, calories out is a failed model because it's too simplistic a model. So most people think that calories in plus calories out equals body weight or body fat. And so if you want to lose body fat, what you need to do is decrease the calories in and increase the calories out. But that sounds logical, but real world studies prove it does not work long term. In the short term, yes, you'll see a little bit of drop in weight and certainly in a little bit of fat loss. However, over the long term, it's actually been proven over the last 50 years to be a completely incorrect hypothesis because people often think that, all right, well, if I decrease the calories in, the calories out is only based on exercise. And if I keep exercise the same, that's going to stay consistent. But the reality is that these two variables, calorie in and calorie out, are not independent of each other, which is the way everybody sort of thinks about it. If I control calories in, calories out stays the same, but that is entirely untrue because your body compensates and one is reliant on the other. So if the calories in comes out, the calories out goes down through your basal metabolic rate. And we'll get into that in a little bit more. So obesity is not just an excess of calories. It's too simplistic of a model. It's actually a hormonal problem, which is driven by insulin levels, and insulin resistance. So here's why cutting calories fails every single time. So as I mentioned, your body fights back against caloric restriction. So when you cut calories, your body lowers your basal metabolic rate to compensate. So let's use an example. If you're in a coal factory and you are providing power for a city and you're used to burning 2,000 pounds of coal a day, and suddenly now you get a shipment and it's only 1,500 pounds of coal a day, what are you going to do with that? And you see that's consistent on a consistent basis. It's coming in at 1,500. So are you going to continue to burn 2,000 pounds of coal a day? No, you're going to say, I'm going to run out of coal if I continue to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease the amount of coal that I'm burning so that it matches what's coming in. And this is exactly what your body does. Your body says, oh, I'm getting less calories. I can't continue to burn at the same level. I'm going to run out of energy. Your body wants to maintain its energy level, wants to maintain your health. It doesn't want to die. Your body doesn't want to die, or neither do you. And so your body compensates by lowering the basal metabolic rate. And now you're burning less calories. So it's sort of like your body actually thinks that you're starving and is holding on to the fat, making the weight loss harder. So another great example that and a lot of the information that I get is from reading and from watching podcasts and things. But one of the people that I believe is sort of the granddaddy of this weight loss journey, obesity and insulin resistance, is Dr. Jason Fung, and I get a lot of my information from him, from his books, The Obesity Code, which I highly recommend, and from watching his videos. But he uses this example all the time of The Biggest Loser. Uh, The Biggest Loser was a television show where contestants tried to lose the greatest amount of weight. And if you've seen the show, they do it through conventional methods. They do it through calories in, calorie out. They restrict their diet to a great degree, and they crank up the exercise to like phenomenal proportions. And so these people do absolutely lose weight. They work themselves to death. They starve themselves. They work themselves to death, and they do drop a lot of weight in the beginning. And as time goes on, that weight loss diminishes. But here's the telling point. You never see a Biggest Loser reunion. You never see people from The Biggest Loser coming back on screen 5 years later saying how they magically kept the weight off. And the reason you don't see it is because that doesn't happen. Those people have regained most of the weight because their metabolism slowed down. So here's what happens. Your metabolism slows down to match the amount of caloric intake. And now they come off the diet, they come off the show, they start to increase their calorie intake. And lo and behold, now their calorie intake is way higher than the metabolism is. And the metabolism takes actually longer to kind of come back to current levels because it was sort of in a starvation mode and trying to decrease the amount of calories burned. And so now they start to gain all this weight back. So if we were to look at The Biggest Losers right now, and you can look at the research that examined The Biggest Loser contestants, years later, you'll see that most of them regained the weight, and many of them have exceeded the weight when they started the show. So why does this happen? What actually is going on? Well, the problem is hunger increases when you cut calories. So cutting calories triggers hormones, particularly a hormone called ghrelin, which is the main hunger hormone. And this causes, so the decrease in calories causes the hunger hormone ghrelin to spike. And so what happens is your body then becomes craving food. And it makes it nearly impossible over the long haul to sustain a low calorie diet. And many of you out there watching this, if you're overweight or you've suffered with obesity in the past, you know that it's super hard to maintain any kind of diet over the long haul. You just get more and more hungry, and a restricted calorie diet is not the way to go. And we've got many, many studies to prove that this is a losing philosophy, that this is a losing technique. It's not going to get you the results that you want over the long haul. So back in 1944, a long time ago, they did this remarkable starvation study. It's called the 1944 Minnesota Starvation Study, where men were brought in who agreed to this study, and they cut their calories and they lost weight. But then what happened is their metabolism dropped, and then they became absolutely obsessed with food. And once the diet ended, they regained the weight really, really fast. And this was a very big study, and with a large number of participants, and it pretty much like clockwork worked that way every single time. Then there was another study years later with called the Women's Health Initiative, where they took a tremendous subject group, a massive 50,000 women study, and they kept half of the people on a low calorie diet, and then half of the people were able to eat a regular diet. And they showed absolutely no difference over the course, I believe it was a 7-year period, where the people who were restricted and the people who were not restricted were literally within pounds of each other. And they showed absolutely no long-term weight loss from restricted calorie intake. So the problem is not about calories, it's about hormones. This is a hormonally driven medical problem. And it's all about insulin because insulin is the main driver, and insulin is the key player. So the more insulin your body produces, the more it's forcing and telling your body. So insulin tells your body what to do, right? And the higher the insulin, the more it's telling your body to store the energy that's coming in as fat. And so as soon as the calories are coming in and insulin is spiked, it's immediately saying, okay, we don't need these calories right now. Let's store these away for later use. And so your liver gets a bunch of that sugar, those sugar molecules to then turn around and store as glycogen. And then it also tells the liver to turn much of that glucose into fat, a process called gluconeogenesis, or creation of um, sorry, it's actually lipogenesis. Sorry, I picked the wrong one. It's lipogenesis, where it takes that sugar and converts it into fat, which then allows your body to store it in those fat cells. So insulin is the key player. It's the main determinant hormone that tells your body what to do. Cutting calories helps, but it also keeps insulin levels high. And that's the main problem with cutting calories, is that if you're eating carbs and you're snacking often, even if you decrease those calories, you're not going to see any weight loss. So it's not that these two things are equal as long as the calories are equal. 100 calories of candy is not equivalent to 100 calories of broccoli. And this is what they've tried to sell us for many, many years. And unfortunately, it's completely wrong. And the sad thing is, we all understand that this is not true. It doesn't make common sense. Nobody in their right mind, without being sort of force-fed this information, would have ever said 100 calories of broccoli equals 100 calories of pizza. It's not the same thing. We all intuitively know that, but they tried to sell us this bill of goods. They tried to tell us that 100 calories is 100 calories and it doesn't matter what it is. But the reality is 100 calories of processed food, especially carbohydrate, is not the same thing and doesn't react in the same way to 100 calories of whole fruits and vegetables. There's a big difference in the way that your body processes that, and that process is through the hormone of insulin. So, cutting calories doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to lose the weight, because that insulin still will be high, particularly if you're eating refined carbohydrates and ultra processed foods, and you're eating very, very often as well by snacking. Sometimes people are eating 6, 7, even 8 times a day, 3 meals, but multiple snacks between meals, which is of course not going to contribute to weight loss. So what is the real solution? The solution is to focus on insulin, not on calories. So what we need to do is we need to lower insulin in order to burn fat. As I mentioned, insulin does tell the body to store that energy as fat. Well, vice versa, if we can lower the insulin levels, what that's going to do is it's going to allow our body to then start using fat as fuel instead of sugar and burn the fat that we have as stores. And, I mentioned glycogen a little bit ago, that the liver takes that sugar and puts it into glycogen in the liver or in the muscles, mostly the liver first. But the glycogen stores of carbohydrate are limited supply, right? There's about a 24-hour supply of carbohydrate or glycogen in our liver. And but we have months and months and months and months, many of us, of calories stored away in our fat. So we need to lower that insulin level to begin to burn that fat as a fuel source. So instead of starving yourself, eat in a way that actually lowers the insulin naturally. And there's several ways of doing this. First and foremost, you can do intermittent fasting. So the best way, the most efficient way to go ahead and lower insulin levels is to do intermittent fasting, or to take windows where you're not eating. So, and we can get into intermittent fasting in a lot more detail in future videos, but you can just simply pick, like, maybe a 14-hour window where you're not eating. Part of that is sleep time, but part of that is from the time you finish dinner to the time you actually eat in the morning. And then that would leave an 8-hour window for you. I'm sorry, a 10-hour window for you to eat. I personally do an 8-hour, an 18-hour fasting window and a 6-hour eating window. But you can also, now intermittent fasting is the most efficient and the best way of lowering insulin. However, you can't, fast forever. You can fast for a really long time, but you're not going to fast forever. So one of the things you have to figure out is, what kind of diet am I going to eat on a regular basis to either minimize insulin or almost mimic fasting. And the best way to do that is a high-fat, low-carb diet, because they also reduce insulin levels, just like the intermittent fasting does. And so these high-fat, low-carb diets, there are many of them out there, basically mimic fasting to a certain degree, because especially the fats do not raise insulin levels to any appreciable degree. There's a very slight, almost insignificant bump, but proteins can, as I mentioned in previous video, and carbohydrates, of course, the biggest spike from, to the insulin levels when you eat those carbohydrates, particularly the refined ones. So eating a high-fat diet in particular, and a healthy amount of protein will keep you full without spiking the insulin. So we have to ditch the eat less, move more mentality. Exercise is great for health. And, when I talked about the expenditure, the calories out myth, they believe that, or what they were trying to sell us was this fact that the only thing that actually determined calories out was exercise. And that is entirely untrue. Basal metabolic rate is a much, much bigger variable in the calories out model. You can have big, big drops in metabolism, where it's really hard to really even move the needle when it comes to exercise in terms of the amount of calories burned. So I'm not saying that exercise is bad. Exercise, of course, is great for health, but it cannot outwork a bad diet. If you're eating terrible refined carbohydrates, if you're socking away and eating super frequently and eating a ton of calories, then of course, exercise alone is going to barely move the needle in terms of weight loss. So weight loss is about hormones, not about willpower. This isn't a matter of you just need to be more disciplined and do more exercise. This is a matter of controlling the insulin levels and controlling the hormones. So here's the big takeaways: why the calories in, calories out was a failed strategy that they tried to kind of implement on the American public, on Western civilization, and So here's the main takeaways that cutting calories, first and foremost, slows metabolism, which offsets any decrease in calories. It increases hunger and increases cravings, which makes it even harder to try to restrict those calories. And it doesn't fix the root cause, which is insulin resistance and higher insulin levels. So, what is the solution? The solution, of course, is to lower insulin, not the calories. And we're going to get much more into how to go about lowering those insulin levels. We're going to talk about different diets. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff coming up in future videos in the next week or two. I did mention yesterday that I am starting a carnivore diet, which is a ketogenic diet, an elimination diet. And I will sort of document my journey through the carnivore diet. I am not trying to tell you carnivore is the way that everybody should eat. I'm simply telling you that this is a high fat, low carbohydrate diet, like I was talking about in this video. It is a very simple diet. It is a very restrictive diet. But for someone like myself who loves meat and believes in a ketogenic diet for maintaining long-term health, the carnivore diet seems like a great option. So have you ever tried any kind of low calorie diets before? And I want you to tell me in the comments below if they worked for you and whether they worked for you in the long term. That's the big, takeaway point. In the short term, any diet will work, any restricted diet will work, but in the long term, that's where the rubber meets the road. So please drop that in the comments for me. I'd love to continue the conversation over there. Also, make sure you tag a friend who still believes in eat less and move more because they need to see this video. So again, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your attention. I hope you learned a little something. Like, sharing, comment as always. Make sure to subscribe. Continue to get my videos, and we'll continue to learn and grow together. And I wish you great success in your own personal obesity journey, weight loss journey. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care.